Depression has been the story of my life. Without question, I've needed to develop coping mechanisms over my 27 years of life in order to mitigate the effects of severe depressive episodes. One of the coping mechanisms that I developed, the most powerful coping mechanism that I've developed, is arguably playing video games. I know this may sound crazy and absurd to some, and I suspect that this video will probably be perceived somewhat differently on a generational level. I'm not saying necessarily that all people in a certain generation are going to agree and all people in a different generation are going to disagree with what I have to say in this video, but I do think there's probably going to be a little bit of a trend, and I won't say exactly what that is, but why don't we get right into it? I'm going to discuss and highlight moments from my life where I was severely depressed. I'm going to talk about why I was depressed and talk about the role and impact that video games played in mitigating the severity of my depression and alleviating the varying degrees of stress that I experienced throughout these multiple depressive episodes. Now, there's a lot of data and research on the positives of video games, and there's also studies on the negatives. Really, in life, almost anything can become an addiction. Almost anything can become a negative behavior that we engage in on a repeated, unhealthy basis. It can become an obsession. I'm not arguing that people should play video games 16 hours a day. What I am going to argue is that balance in almost everything is a good thing, and especially in video games. Finding balance is key. So I want to draw your attention to a time period of my life when I was severely bullied. When I was in middle school, I was bullied relentlessly. It really made me feel worthless. It made me feel like I didn't have a purpose in this world. And from a very early age, I started to develop negative thought patterns and engage in negative self talk, which would ultimately lead to suicidal ideation as well. Fortunately, at the middle school level, I didn't act on those suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, but they were there. They existed, and I had to deal with them. Video games at the time were my way of escaping from the noise and chaos of the world around me. I didn't have a fantastic upbringing. I was raised by a single parent and she did a phenomenal job, but my dad left when I was 2, and that always didn't sit well with me. It hit me really hard, and it was tough to try to grasp and learn as I grew older why that happened and feeling like it was my fault in many circumstances. And of course, that's not true. It's antithetical to the truth to suggest that it was my fault that my father left, but that's just the way I felt. It wasn't a very rational line of thinking, and I think a major reason why I wasn't experiencing the most rational lines of thinking is the fact that I was being severely bullied. There's a study that was done by the University of Oxford showing that time spent playing video games is strongly associated with overall well-being. And what I find interesting about that is that this was the epitome of my case and my circumstance when I was being bullied. I would come home from school and I would turn on my Xbox and play games like Star Wars Battlefront or Freedom Fighters. Later on, I would get into video games like Call of Duty. I was also heavily into the Dynasty Warrior series by Koei, that corporation. I still enjoy a lot of those games to this day. I play Call of Duty on a regular basis, but it was my escape from the world around me. And I didn't have many friends at the time. I probably had 1 or 2 friends at most. And so there wasn't really anybody that I felt comfortable going to in order to express my dissatisfaction with my daily life, my dissatisfaction with the fact that I was being severely bullied in school. And as I'm sure you're all aware, school administrators, they notice these things and they don't particularly do anything about it. This is like, and I'm speaking, I know some might say, oh, you're speaking generally, I'm a teacher and I start, oh, look at, By and large, this is like a widespread problem where I feel like authorities neglect to take proactive action in stopping kids from getting bullied and enacting severe enough punishments to ensure that people don't continue to engage in that negative behavior. For me, coming home and playing Call of Duty, like I said, it was an escape. It allowed me to escape from that noisy, chaotic world where I was being bullied. And for a few hours, I could relax. And since it was something that I was incredibly good at, and I'm still incredibly good at, it always feels good to be good at something. And I was passionate about it. And I played FPS, first person shooter games, from a very young age. And I think that's partly why I was so naturally good at Call of Duty. It's because I had played games like 007 and, like I said, Star Wars Battlefront, different games. And any game that involves shooting, I pretty much played. And I played like the Medal of Honor series. And it allowed me to become a very skilled player. I was into Halo very heavily. Social interaction is paramount to being healthy. And I say that as an introvert, mind you. Psychologist James Van Fleet says that sense of belonging and peer approval are some of the basic human desires that everyone has. And when I came home and played video games with my own community, my friends on Call of Duty, it gave me that sense of belonging that I didn't feel in my real life, that I didn't feel at school. And it gave me a reason to keep persisting. It gave me something to look forward to. It gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense of peer approval because the people I played with, some of them dealt with similar problems. And I just want to say right now that these online friends I've had, which some people might consider not to be real friends, look at, they know more about me than anyone I've ever met in real life. That's insane to me. And some of these people I still play with to this day. I've been playing with them for over 17 years. So this notion that gaming friendships can't be true friendships, I would say, is an absolutely absurd assertion. A friendship shouldn't be based on the medium through which you organize the relationship. It should be based on the quality of the relationship and what each of you offer one another. It shouldn't be, you could have dozens of relationships in real life, but if they're parasitic and they're one-way streets where one person benefits at another's expense, are those really relationships that are worth having? And I would eventually develop friendships with people in real life as well. And I think that gaming actually gave me social skills that I was lacking in real life. So, in addition to being a coping mechanism for the severe depression that I was feeling as a result of being bullied, in addition to being an escape, it also bolstered my social skills because I would be interacting with others and I could then go to school the next day and try to incorporate different interactions that I had and expressions that I witnessed and to eventually make friends. Another time period in my life where video games, I would argue, saved my life was in the aftermath of my major bipolar manic episode. I had a 6 month long manic episode during my junior year of university. At this time in my life, I wasn't really playing video games. I was too busy experiencing a wide array of delusions and hallucinations. And the eclectic range of severe symptoms I experienced presented serious, drastic consequences on my well being and the circumstances of my life. I ended up having to leave university. I ended up losing my job. I ended up losing a lot of my social relationships. And in the aftermath of my mania, as medication started to kick in, as I started to regain my insight and discernment and realized that the things I was saying weren't true and that the things I was doing were wrong, I started to experience a great deal of fear, shame, embarrassment, doubt, uncertainty. I felt like a part of me had died. I felt like my life as I knew it was over. When I first got out of my manic episode, I started playing Dragon Age Inquisition, and I became deeply entrenched into that video game. And for a long time, it was the only thing I was doing outside of isolating in my room and going to doctor's appointments. And The story that was presented was one that profoundly interested me and kept my attention, and it gave me something to look forward to. At this moment in time, that's all I needed was some sense of purpose from anywhere, somewhere. Does it truly matter where you derive your sense of purpose? Having a sense of purpose is crucial to well being. It's paramount to living a healthy life and having a healthy mindset and perspective. And I attribute a lot of my recovery process to the time spent playing video games because, once again, video games served as an ephemeral escape from the realities of my world. And those realities were nightmares. They were dark. They were, I can't believe you said this during Mania. I can't believe you did that during Mania. I can't believe you got kicked out of school. I can't believe you lost your job. But when I was playing video games, I wasn't engulfed in that negative self-talk because I was focused on the story in front of me. So in this video, my hope is not to encourage people to think that playing video games only is going to change your life, or playing video games exclusively will somehow drastically transform the circumstances of your life. I don't think that's true. But I do think it is an effective, proven coping mechanism, at least from my own lived experiences. I would argue it's proven as a coping mechanism to mitigate the effects of depression, to help provide sense of purpose, to encourage social interaction. And again, why does it matter where we derive our social interaction? The medium through which we experience it. Social interaction is social interaction. And we can get into all these specifics about how, one person might have a preference for this or one might have a preference for that. But when you don't have it within your power or capability to get social interaction from a particular realm, whether it be IRL or through a video game, it's crucial that you get it from somewhere or anywhere. It's better to have some social interaction than none at all. And again, I'm saying this as an introvert. So video games have saved my life on multiple occasions because I was suicidal when I was being bullied. I was suicidal in the aftermath of my manic episode for quite a prolonged period of time. Video games offered me an escape. They offered me the chance to have social interaction and feel like I'm not alone in this world and feel like I'm not worthless, because it gave me a story and a sense of purpose, something to look forward to, something to engage in. At times when I was experiencing anhedonia, which is loss of interest in things that previously you were passionate about, video games kind of were always there for me to get myself entangled into and just pass the hours by. And that's all I needed, because I've said in previous videos how time has been the greatest healer for myself, and video games really allowed me to not rush the recovery process, but to take it gradually, one step at a time. So I hope this video makes sense. If you can relate, let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. And everyone, please like and leave a comment so that more people can see this video. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Love, light, and tranquility to all.